I never thought I'd say this, but I agree with Chris Cuomo. Wait until you hear the blistering messages he just unleashed on his own party. Then Democrats, they're pushing a shocking new bill that bans masks and it requires IDs. Sound familiar to anybody? Wait until you see who this bill targets. You are not going to believe it. Plus, an unexpected heartbreaking twist in the blame game over the Texas floods. But first, California Governor Gavin Newsom still thinks he's headed to the White House. And even MSNBC is forced to admit his leadership has been an absolute disaster.
That's a guy who, if he runs, he's got a lot to defend in California. If you look at quality of life issues there, man, he's
a good fighter, though.
He's really good fighter on TV.
Really
he's a really good debater, but he's got a really big pile of problems back in California.
Newsom has been in South Carolina talking to residents, which it's worth noting. South Carolina is an early primary state, which is probably why the governor's there. As a resident of California, I think I speak for many when I say I wish he would work this hard for the people who employ him right now. But while he's in South Carolina, maybe he can do us a favor, talk with the governor and figure out how he's able to keep his gas prices so low, because we would enjoy a nice little break at the pump if we could get one. This post on X pretty much sums up the reaction the governor is receiving. David writes, quote, "I can't think of anything more disrespectful. Gavin Newsom is in South Carolina while LA still looks like this 6 months after the fire. This photo was taken this week. When Californians need their governor, he's not even in the state." Now here's Steve Hilton, who's the Republican candidate that is now running for Newsom's job.
What has Gavin Newsom done in the last 6 months? He's presided over the continuing increase of gas prices, the highest in the country. He's totally failed to respond in the way that he promised to this wildfire disaster. He promised a Marshall Plan to recover and rebuild LA. Instead, you walk around here, you see this community still devastated, debris everywhere. It's a total disaster. He's totally failed on every front.
He's also failed our daughters by refusing to uphold Title IX, selling out our female athletes in the name of woke politics. And let's not forget his sanctuary city policies, an absolute disaster for hardworking Californians. Yet again, Newsom's on the wrong side of the issue. Because here's the truth. It doesn't matter how you slice it, spin it, or pull it. Across the board, Americans want every single illegal immigrant out of this country. Not just the violent criminals, not just the repeat offenders. I'm talking all of them.
Deport all immigrants who are here illegally, 55% of the New York Times, Marquette 64%, CBS News 57%, ABC News with a slightly different question 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different polls.
If you agree with that poll, hit that like button for me. And if you haven't already, don't forget to share and subscribe. Now, it seems like it should be an easy concept for Democrats to grasp, but nope, they refuse to listen to the American people. Stacey Abrams is now making this bizarre claim.
You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
So because Americans overwhelmingly voted to remove illegal immigrants from our country, we're never going to have another election? That's where Trump is taking us? What are these people drinking? And now we have a Democrat running for city council in San Antonio who's writing, quote, "I want to see a few dead ICE agents, Los Angeles. Don't let me down." That post coming after 10 suspects were arrested for luring ICE agents out of a facility in Texas with fireworks and then opening fire. Even Chris Cuomo is calling this behavior sick.
If you're on the left, you just had 10 young people try to kill ICE officers because their policies suck, because the way they're doing it is wrong, and this is something you want to get behind? And say, yeah, well, but? What but? What are you, nuts? If you want to have a fight, I'm here for it, okay? Because these fringe people on either side, you want somebody to take you on, I'm here for it, because you're killing us with your crazy.
Oh, and buckle up, because the crazy train, it doesn't end there. In fact, it made a stop in California. Senator Alex Padilla, you know, the guy who thought charging Kristi Noem during a press conference was a power move, he is now pushing a bill that would force ICE agents to take off their masks and show ID before making an arrest. If I had known that a few ICE arrests were all it took to get Democrats to ban masks, I would have called for nationwide sweeps years ago. And the ID part? They don't think voters should have to show ID, but now you want federal agents to flash theirs before enforcing the law? Might as well throw in a full TSA check while they're at it. Here's the president responding to this idea.
And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, so they can lead a little bit of a normal life after having worked so hard and so dangerously, there's a problem with that.
While we're on the subject of ICE, California Democrats aren't just trying to make arrests harder, they're going to court over them. Los Angeles, along with 7 of its neighbors, is joining a federal class action lawsuit against the Trump administration, accusing it of going rogue with immigration raids. Now, the lawsuit claims federal agents are bending the rules using racial profiling and excessive force, all in the name of boosting arrest numbers in Los Angeles.
It is critical that we use every single venue, every single possibility of seeking justice, and that's what we're doing today. And I do hope that the courts especially issue this injunction and stop this.
Who wants to tell her suing Trump didn't work out so well for Gavin Newsom? I mean, you know the messaging is in free fall for Democrats when even Chris Cuomo jumped ship. Watch him absolutely unload on Senator Chris Murphy's pathetic attempt to pin Texas flood deaths on the president.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, I've been trying to get him on the show. Now I don't want him. Accurate weather forecasting helps avoid fatal disasters. That's what you say? There are consequences to attacking meteorologists? You really believe that that's what this was about? You really think that's what your constituents want? For you to take a cheap shot at dead kids to score points against Trump? Wow. And guess what? The Union for the National Weather Service, and they've been critical of Trump's cuts, and I'm not saying there's not reason for criticism, but it's about perspective. The union says there was adequate staff at the time in Texas, and meteorologists are not faulting the National Weather Service. They're noting that they began to escalate the flood warnings as much as 12 hours in advance of the floods. So shut up, Murphy.
I never thought I'd say this, but credit where it's due. Go Chris Cuomo. Because here's the truth. Democrats aren't just ignoring facts. They're manufacturing their own narrative on the fly. They're so tunnel vision on taking down Trump, they'll hijack any tragedy, spin any headline, and burn their own credibility to the ground in the process. And while Chris Cuomo's on a roll, he should probably give his old coworkers over at CNN a quick little call, because they're having their own little fact-checking crisis these days. Watch Republican strategist Lance Trover step in and dismantle Abby Phillips' narrative.
Clearly, there are some things where spending money saves lives, and it may not save lives in the moment that you spend it, but at some point, somebody's life, somebody's child could have been saved.
Well, I think something that gets lost in this is the DOGE cuts have actually not taken effect. They don't take effect until October 1st. And if you talk to the National Weather Service, they say we had 5 staffers instead of the normal 2 that were on hand. We were giving alerts on Thursday warning about this. You talked to the union head of the National Weather Service staffers and said, yeah, we did every single thing we could possibly do.
Abby claims to be in the business of reporting facts. So how is she missing all the vital ones? And if Democrats are so desperate to point fingers, maybe they should start with someone in their own backyard. Let's talk about Austin's first Black fire chief, Joel Baker. The department has been focusing on hiring more Black and LGBTQ firefighters, but now Chief Baker is facing a vote of no confidence from his own union. Why? Because he refused to pre-deploy rescue resources to Kerrville ahead of the storm, citing budget concerns. The problem with that? The state of Texas reimburses those deployments in full. Listen to the raw emotion from the president of Austin's Firefighters Association as he speaks out against Baker's decision.
I just don't even have words. Our firefighters are trained for that area. Our firefighters have the equipment, they have the desire, they have the will, they have the power to go up and actually, I know some of those girls could have been survived if we had had the best boat crew the day before on scene. I know it. I know it in my heart. I know it as a battalion chief. I know it as a former Swiftwater tech myself. And the fact that we didn't do it and we let them down, it's unconscionable.
Here's the bottom line. A DEI hire had the chance to save lives, and he failed. Not because of lack of funding, but because he couldn't grasp basic logistics like reimbursement. And this is the story the media should be covering, but they won't touch it because they would rather protect their ideological narrative than hold anyone accountable who checks the right diversity boxes. But guess what? While they're busy ignoring real scandals, a different kind of accountability might finally be catching up to some of their darlings. Former CIA Director John Brennan and ex-FBI Director James Comey, yes, Mr. Seashells himself, are now under investigation for potential criminal conduct tied to the Trump-Russia collusion probe. Sources say Brennan is being investigated for lying to Congress, and that both he and Comey were part of what the DOJ insiders are now calling a conspiracy. So Brennan told Congress he had nothing to do with the Steele dossier. But current CIA Director John Ratcliffe, he apparently has provided newly surfaced intel that says otherwise. Brennan's top CIA Russia experts explicitly warned him back then not to touch it, calling it an internet rumor. But Brennan ignored that and pushed it anyway. Now a source says calling it a conspiracy could actually widen the legal exposure.
The question is, does any of this trick the wire to perjury? And both of these are sophisticated players. You'll notice that they're very careful in how they word this. Comey is very careful to say that there wasn't basically malicious intent, not that there weren't mistakes.
Let's be crystal clear. Brennan and Comey both knew the Steele dossier came straight from the Clinton campaign, and yet they used it to smear Donald Trump. But it appears in this investigation that it's Brennan who could be in bigger trouble.
If you go back to the 2023 congressional testimony by then private citizen Brennan, he suggested at that time, in fact, he stated that he had not had anything to do with the inclusion of the Steele dossier in the briefing of the then President-elect Trump in 2017. The note released by the CIA this week, and on which Director Ratcliffe has commented, contradicts that. And therefore, there is at least a resolution that has to be found and possibly an indictment that will follow whether or not Mr. Brennan lied. I do want to remind the audience, this is what got General Flynn originally convicted, was a false statements case made on a much thinner reed than what is being alleged to occur here. But no professional prosecutor will get out ahead of a case like this and say he lied until they're ready to take it to the grand jury.
As for the conspiracy part of this investigation, you may remember Comey signed off on the famous FISA warrants that allowed the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign, knowing full well the dossier was fake. And here are the signatures of all those responsible for allowing this to happen. Comey's name? Front and center at the top of the page. Now, Comey recently has been taunting Kash Patel in interviews, basically saying Kash isn't qualified to be the FBI director. And I think we're about to find out who's going to get the last laugh on all of this. But here's what Kash was saying back in May.
James Comey's a private citizen, and he can walk around the beach and talk about seashells and Crayola crayons for all I care about, and talk about how we're the conspiracy theorists. But I just remind the American people of one thing. When that man was the leader of the FBI, he perpetrated the largest criminal conspiracy, packaged political information from overseas, took it to a federal FISA court, and illegally surveilled a political opponent. So I won't be lectured on how to run this FBI from that man.
Comey and Brennan already had their security clearances stripped by President Trump. Now, as far as charging decisions, those would come from either the Attorney General or U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, but we're not quite there yet. We need a grand jury to give the green light on any indictment. We will wait and see where that takes us. Another investigation underway is the one into Joe Biden's cognitive decline. The former president's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, he had his deposition before Congress today regarding what he knew about the president's health. When O'Connor was asked if he was told to lie about President Biden's health and whether he was fit to be the president, he took the fifth. A family business associate did the same. James Comer, who's leading this investigation, wrote, quote, "It's now clear there was a conspiracy to cover up President Biden's cognitive decline after Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's physician and family business associate, refused to answer any questions and chose to hide behind the Fifth Amendment. The American people demand transparency, but Dr. O'Connor would rather conceal the truth." I bet Dr. O'Connor wishes he had a pardon right now, and I'm actually a little shocked he doesn't. I mean, think about this. The former White House doctor won't say if Biden was mentally fit to serve as the leader of the free world. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about the weaponization of power, the corruption of truth, and a system that protects its own people at any cost. Well, the American people demand accountability. Let's see if we get it. Up next, Attorney General Pam Bondi breaks her silence over the Epstein files, and Border Patrol has a blistering message for LA's Mayor Karen Bass after she pulled a little political stunt during an ICE raid. I also have an update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and a district judge blocks the big beautiful bill. Here we go again. Lots of good info in this next video. Go ahead, click on it now, and I'll see you over there.